This week's video is on grades and grading, specifically Part 1, Our Purpose for Grading. Many people, educators included, find grading and grades very confusing. This confusion starts with consistency and clarity, as in, there is often little to no consistency or clarity. In most schools and districts, there's no consistency about what's included in a grade or what's left out, even among teachers teaching the same subject in the same school to students at the same grade level or course at the same level. What counts? Tests? Projects? Homework and quizzes? Classwork? What about participation or effort? And of what's included, does everything contribute equally to the grade? What does a grade, whether a number or a letter, actually mean? What's the difference, for example, between an A and a B, a 91, a 90, and an 89, or a 4 and a 3? Is everyone using the same grading criteria? Is Mr. Smith's A or 3 the same as Miss Brown's A or 3? Can a student get a good grade or pass a class for trying hard, even if they don't understand the concept or concepts? With so many questions, it's no wonder there's so much confusion around grading. So let's turn confusion into clarity, uncertainty into understanding. This video is the first in a 5-part series around grading and grades. We'll cover everything from our grade scale to what work habits are and how we grade them. But this first video is on the purpose of grades at Governor Wentworth in Middleton. There are many different purposes of grades. Grades describe achievement to parents, guardians, students, administrators, teachers, and even potential employers or colleges. They provide information that students can use for self-evaluation and growth. Where am I now in my learning progress, and where do I go next? Grades serve as incentives to quote-unquote do well. Complete your work, show good effort, listen, prove you've learned something. And students are rewarded with good grades, which in many parts of our society are keys that open doors to college, employment, and even scholarships. But grades can also be used as punishment. Don't comply, and your grade gets docked, even if you can show that you've mastered the material. Another purpose for grades is to identify students for educational opportunities, including middle and high school pathways or tracks, like standard level or honors, or enrichment and remediation programs. And finally, another purpose of grades is to evaluate how effective or successful a school's curriculum or a teacher's instruction or assessments are. There are a handful of research-backed truths about grading, and today I'm going to share 2 of them with you. First, no one method of grading and reporting serves all of the purposes from that previous slide well. A school or district that tries to address all of these purposes with a single method ends up achieving none of them very well. Let's take the traditional 0 to 100 point scale, where everything counts equally and everything gets averaged together. This method helps to provide incentives and punishments in that a 0 or multiple zeros can tank a student's grade. So they're incentivized to comply and do all their work to earn the high grades. Again, rewards and punishments. But that same 0 to 100 scale that includes and averages everything doesn't accurately describe a student's achievement. If, for example, a student earned 2 zeros for failing to hand in 2 assignments, 3 100s on tests, and a 70 on an essay because they lost 10 points for each day late and then turned it in 3 days late, so 30 points lost, their average is a 62, or failing. But on every major test or essay, they earned the highest score for proficiency, save the 30 lost points for being late, which doesn't mean they weren't proficient in the skill, only in turning the assignment in on time. Likewise, as a teacher, I'd hate for that 62 grade to be used as a measure of my instruction. If students were showing proficiency on their tests and essays, that means I'm doing something right. That 62 is not a good measure of my ability to teach, for example, the writing process. One other example is a narrative grade. No number or letter, just a teacher-written narrative detailing the end learning goals, the steps of progression toward that proficiency, and where a student is in the learning process. Such a method is the best way to provide feedback to students to guide them toward next steps for learning. A narrative system offers detailed information to help place students in enrichment or intervention programs, or to recommend a high school track for students. This method, when done correctly and well, gives parents and guardians a very detailed account of their child's achievement. But good narratives take time to prepare, and not surprisingly, as teachers complete more narratives, their comments become increasingly standardized and more vague, which does not describe achievement as well. Additionally, the narrative method doesn't help a district evaluate how effective a curriculum, program, or teacher is because it's difficult and time-consuming to quantify a narrative. The lesson here is because one method won't accurately serve all purposes, schools or districts must identify their primary purpose for grading and select or develop the most appropriate approach. And that brings us to today's second truth. Grades have some value as rewards, but no value as punishments. Although teachers dream that all students just want to learn for the sake of learning, grades and other reporting methods are important factors in determining how much effort students put forth. Most students Most students view high grades as positive recognition of their success, and some, but not all, work hard to earn good grades and avoid the consequences of low grades. At the same time, not a single study supports the use of low grades as punishment. Instead of encouraging greater effort, low grades usually cause students to withdraw from learning. To protect their self-image, many students see the low grade as irrelevant and meaningless. Other students may blame themselves for the low grade, but feel helpless to improve. Such practices have no educational value and in the long run negatively affect students, teachers, and the relationship they share. And so, recognizing that one of the listed purposes of grades is not an effective purpose, that being to punish students, here is our district's primary purpose for grading. The purpose of grades is to communicate students' academic achievement of priority competencies to students and their parents' guardians. Let's break this down to really understand our purpose. Grades are only meant to communicate, not as a means to punish or motivate students. Grades should communicate academic achievement separate from non-academic factors like effort, behavior, or participation. You'll see work habits are reported separately on our progress reports, as a student may put forth little effort but still show mastery of academic concepts and skills, or vice versa. Additionally, grades are only linked to priority competencies. They don't communicate things like achievement of last year's or next year's competencies. And if you want to know what your child's competencies are, you can go to their grade level curriculum documents on our curriculum website. And finally, we are communicating to students and their parents or guardians. By making students and their parents' guardians the target audience, we're committed to making grading decisions with only these groups in mind. Other groups, such as administrators, counselors, other teachers, and even college admittance officers, may be using the grades, but they won't be considered in any grading decisions. So, that's more than you potentially ever wanted to know about the purposes of grading. But you now know and hopefully understand our district's grading purpose, and the grading method we use that I'll outline in subsequent videos in this series will help address our purpose. Until next week, thanks.